Senator Alma Francis Heilega.
Thank you. Good morning to my colleagues, to the people of the territory, to the testifiers. I am very happy that I am here in the chambers today to really have this opportunity to bestow upon former Senator Goodwin these accolades. What I will say is that when I came to the legislature in 1999, I've been here for over 25 years, serving under central staff, senatorial staff, and now a senator. I was fortunate enough that Senator Goodwin was here in these halls. And what I will say is he always came across as a very humble human being. He was always down to earth. He never passed anyone. He was always a cordial individual that greeted very nicely. And that was one of the things about him that I always gravitated to, because, you know, sometimes from public view, a lot of times they're like, oh, the senators, from time they get elected, they turn into this, that, and the other, which is not true for every one of us. But I can honestly say about former Senator Goodwin, he just genuinely loved his job and he loved the people of this territory. But the things I want to ask you guys, for me, one of the things that stuck out with hearing about him as an individual was his championship of looking out for the children that immigrated to this territory. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was a little bit taken back at our history as to how that was done to people, because that could have easily been me. I'm a child of two immigrants, one from Tortola, one from St. Kitts. I could have been born on any one of those islands and had to come here. But for us as a people to have treated individuals like that, I think it was very harsh, in my opinion. But to know that he stood up on behalf of that situation, it made me very proud to know him as an individual. So what I'm going to ask you guys, could you, and I want to say Bethel Baptist, because when I was told the story initially, they shared with me that that was one of the few schools that allowed for children to get their education. So can you share with me a little bit about that and how former Senator Goodwin was able to assist with that?
Well, when I was 24 years old, I realized that we had a problem with that. I was still a bonded alien, and one of the surprises to a lot of people in the island, I found out that not only did we start the school, but I'd already done the homework in getting permission from the federal government to give school admittance to the children, and nobody thought that that would ever be possible. And George Goodwin, after a while, was one of the guys that came by to help me to pursue that area, so that when we were able to bring children from the islands with the papers in their hand to come to school. And because of that, every month, almost every month, immigration office was in my office.
Oh, wow.
Shaking me down to see whether I got the proper authority to bring these children in. So it was a cause that we were fighting for years, and finally got clear passage so that the children could come in freely and go to school. So it was quite a challenging endeavor back then to bring children in from the other islands, and not just children, but particularly the children of the migrant workers, you know, with their families working here.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. As it relates to cricket, I think that was one of his great loves. I will honestly tell you, because anytime you ever spoke to him, cricket was a second language. I'm just going to be honest. So from the Cricket Association, what you shared with us your thoughts on former Senator Goodwin, but do you think that the cricket would have advanced as much as it had without him playing a significant role here in the territory, or do you think that he assisted with propelling it forward in a great way?
No, I do not think that it will advance.
One second. Before anyone speaks, just state your name.
Calvert Gibson. I do not think, Senator, that cricket will be advanced if former
30 seconds.
Former Senator Goodwin was not a part of it. Because he just did not put in his time He put in his finances.
Okay.
When the team them go down, like to Antigua, St. Kitts, and they get in trouble down there in respect to, not have enough funds to continue to stay, he had to literally fly from the St. Thomas to that particular island to deal with it. So he was a man who always there. No matter what, I remember one year they came down to put light on the Conquering Field, and because the setup that they had was wrong, and he had to leave the Senate floor and come down there to assist us. But we told him we would not have been here.
Well, thank you so much. I just want to wrap up, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I will be voting in the affirmative for this piece of legislation. I think that any person that has contributed so much to the growth of the Virgin Islands in a positive way should get these type of accolades, and I'm looking forward to giving my positive vote as we move on in this halls today. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Thank you, Senator Alma Francis Heiliger.
We'll now have the lady from Round the Field, Hospital Ground. The
Round the
honor-
Field Hospital Ground and Savannah.
Anne Savan.
Duh.
Anne Savan.
I went straight from the hospital to Savannah.
Okay. The lady, Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon once again to the people of the territory, to the testifiers, to my colleagues. I rise in support of this piece of legislation because as a Black person in modern day history, learning about the many things that our ancestors had to go through in order to be where we are today is something I think is critical, not only just celebrating the emancipation of slavery on a national level, because this is already a federal holiday that we're now codifying here in the Virgin Islands as well, but it also brings back to mind how we as a people, as Virgin Islanders, need to make sure and focus on the fact that we also need to push for our own history here to make sure that the very people that we are understand who we are as a people. It's a great thing to celebrate other histories, but we should never be fighting as to whether or not our own children understand who they are as Virgin Islanders. That shouldn't be an issue. But when it comes to Juneteenth, I am going to look at it from two perspectives. I support it. I want it here. Our community is, about 80% Afro-Caribbean, Black. I think it's a great piece of legislation to codify here in the code. But one of the things that I also have to have a balance, because as a representative in the community, one of the things that I was hearing, they kept saying, well, we have too many holidays in government. This is a constant thing. So I'm trying to figure out, how do we get a balance with now adding yet another one? Even though it's federal, how do we get a balance with that? Because I still want to make sure that the public understands that this is just not about us having a day off. It's about a history of a people and what we had to go through to guarantee that even individuals such as myself could sit in these hallways and be who we are today. But then I also have to listen to my constituents saying, well, what is the significance of us having another day, and how are we going to celebrate it in some way to showcase as to why we're even doing it? And that is where I need some conversation and a little bit of happy balance, and especially for the listeners to hear why. You understand what I'm saying? So if any of the testifiers could share their thoughts on what I just tossed, that I would be more than happy to listen.
Thank you very much, Senator, for your insights and your perspectives.
Time. Kindly proceed.
Let's take July 3rd. And over the decades, July 3rd has not been the holiday that it should be in the territory.
Exactly.
And I'm of the opinion that the adoption of this in the Virgin Islands Code may also bring a greater sense of national pride by Virgin Islanders of their own struggles for their own freedom and the role that they played in striking that act before the United States, and that with solidarity that we also join our African American brothers and sisters in their observance. I paid very close attention to the adoption and the celebration and the scale of the celebration in the United States last year, and deeply desire that the people of the Virgin Islands, especially from the government perspective, would do more to honor and to observe July 3rd in the territory, July 3rd and 4th, because it wasn't an insular. It was proclaimed on St. Croix on July 3rd and issued on St. Thomas St. John on July 4th. Even how we celebrate the 4th of July and St. John is grossly inadequate as it relates to our history. That should be one of the first expressions of us as a people in opening that day of the announcement of our own freedom, where that announcement was proclaimed in this district.
And for me, Madam Chair, could I just quickly respond?
Yes, and you can wrap up.
And for me, you literally go back to what I was speaking about, our VI history. We are here adopting Juneteenth, which is national, so we could help invoke our own pride. But we're not focusing enough on making sure these children know their own history so that their pride could be beaming, that even this is now going to just be nothing more than an addition to what is already fulfilling them as a people. And I am very concerned about this. Because, we're going to get and we're going to celebrate Juneteenth. I know more about Juneteenth a lot of times than I knew about Virgin Islands history. And I was born and raised here 49 years. Something is wrong. We should never be in a situation where somebody's telling me our people don't have enough history. We are wealthy, wealthy people when it comes to culture and history, and people have to stand up and start pushing that. So thank you very much for your response. I don't know if anyone else had anything else to say. Go ahead. Well, on the Madam Chair's time, I appreciate the additional time.
Okay, we have point of information from Senator Alma Francis Heiliger. Senator Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your point of information.
Thank you. This point of information is something for me personally. I listened to my colleague previously speak on a term that I personally do not think as Black people should even be part of our vocabulary, Black on Black violence. And I sat here and it was bothering me quite a bit, because if you go into a community that has predominantly whites, you don't hear white on white violence. If you go to a reservation where there are Indians, you don't hear Indian on Indian violence. But for some reason, we have decided to put African Americans and Blacks and Caribbeans into a term that I believe is nothing more than a socio-economic or political way of trying to degrade Black people. That is my opinion, and I didn't want that only narrative to be put on the Senate floor today, because in the Virgin Islands, we are predominantly Black. So let's be real. If crimes happen, the majority of the crimes are going to happen to Black people. It is just our demographics. So when we're going to be sucked into the media and the way they choose to describe 12% of the American population with Black on Black violence, when the majority of the crimes are committed by other races, you don't hear that narrative. So I'm just simply putting on the record, I don't support that, and I don't think it needs to be part of our vocabulary at all. We need to stop crime altogether without trying to just focus on, say, it's Black on Black people doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Francis Heiliger. Heiliger, you are recognized for your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon to my colleagues, to the people of the territory, to the testifiers. First of all, I loved Horace. I loved Horace. A lot of people don't know me and Horace were members of the Rotary Club. So we were always there chatting up 24/7. And Horace was a fierce advocate. He loved that Democratic Party. I could tell you that much, because for the 100th times he tried to convince me to join, he was relentless. But Horace didn't know I was a little stubborn. That's all it was. I tell him as a Democrat at heart. I ain't reached to the breakfast yet, but I will keep coming. He never stopped. So I know how much he loved the Democratic Party and what it represented, and I always admired him for his tenacity. One of the things that I admired most about Horace is when Horace spoke, you had to believe what he said. He just spoke in a way that was so convincing. And it was always a situation with him. You always know when Horace come in a room because he had this swag about him that was untouched by anybody else. It was this little walk and this, you knew Horace was coming. But he was a blessed man. He was a blessed man he always had a smile on his face. Every time he come into you, he come in with something positive. He's always trying to encourage you to do something better. And even election time, he would be, Alma, I know you're running and all. You will win. Because he had done know, because he was always calculating every election outcome. And he would be like, you're going to win or no? But you need to hurry up, join the party to get it done faster. But he always was that positive voice. And I appreciated him for that more than anything else. So I am very happy that with all the individuals that are here, that I will almost guarantee all of us that have been touched by Horace, this is moving forward because he definitely deserves it. I listened to all the testifiers and everyone that had something to say, but knowing that man, I would say it was an honor for me to have had the opportunity to know him in my lifetime. So that's all I had to say on that. I also would like to thank Mr. Stedman Hodge for his letter because, he gave a little bit of enlightenment as to how, things were a little bit done back then. But I will touch on that another day, but I was very educated today, but appreciative of being able to have the opportunity to speak on Mr. Calwood's behalf. He was truly missed and will be greatly remembered. Thank you.
And thank you, Senator Francis Heiliger. 3 minutes. One round of 3 minutes. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized. You're recognized for your 3 minutes.
Good afternoon again to my colleagues, to the people of the territory, to the testifier honoree. First of all, I'm very happy to be here to even listen to all the many things that were said in a positive way about Mr. Todman. Boise. And what I want to ask directly, a lot of this has to do with sports in the Virgin Islands and the positive impact that sports continue to have on our young people. But what do you think is, when it comes to the education of our children, especially in the schools today, do you think, what can we do more to assist with these young people to utilize sports in a much better way? Because for me, it seems as if though long gone are the days of when sports was at the forefront and even assisting with scholarships and all of these other things that really helped our young people. where have we kind of dropped the ball a little bit? Because this continues, but what do you think from being there, what can we do better to improve?
Good afternoon, listening audience and all senators. My view of that is if we give the kids more time to play sports or travel, they get exposure and experience. And that was the reason that we decided to start traveling with zero tolerance.
Oh, good.
We've been doing this from 2008. Okay? And I always stress it's not about winning and losing. If you're going to teach the children to play the game the right way and they have fun, we do something.
Definitely. And one thing a lot of people don't realize that sportsmanships bring about great human beings. They learn about interaction, they learn about fair play, they learn about loss, they learn about winning. And all of these different aspects develop really great people. And I think sometimes that's even lost as well when we are not focused and give as much attention to sports that I believe we need to here in this territory. So I applaud you gentlemen for the continued hard work in making sure that even this program is at the forefront to make sure that sports is still there. Now, the other question I want to ask is, do you think that we are on a track to potentially get back to where we should be? And if not, what solutions do you believe that should be in place to get there?
My view again to that, right now we have just the use of one public school gym. Well, let me say two, BCB, but they have issues right now.
Oh, wow.
But they use Ken Gym. We don't have enough facilities to accommodate the players that we have around here. And the players is not just St. Thomas, we cater to St. Croix, St. John, and even the BVI. If we get the facilities for the youth, if we get
Continue.
If we get the use of the facilities or more, I think we'll be able to do more for the youth right now.
Okay. Thank you so much. I don't want to go over my time, but I really appreciate your response. We'll see what we can figure out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heiliger.